I'd like to call this meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Need a roll call?
Mr. Bavoni?
Here.
Ms. Perez?
Here.
Mr. McIrvin?
Here.
Ms. Witchy? Mr. Person?
Here.
Mr. Prince?
Here.
Mr. Corman?
Here.
Roll call, Mr. Mayor. One absent.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Prince.
I move we excuse the absent council member.
Second.
Been moved by Mr. Prince, seconded by Mr. Corman. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next up, we have a proclamation. It is Red Ribbon Week. Let's read that.
Whereas alcohol and other drug abuse in this nation has reached epidemic stages, and whereas it is imperative that visible, unified prevention education efforts by community members be launched to eliminate the demand for drugs, and whereas the National Red Ribbon Campaign offers citizens the opportunity to demonstrate their commitment to drug-free lifestyles, no use of illegal drugs, no use of legal drugs. And whereas the National Red Ribbon Campaign will be celebrated in every community in America during Red Ribbon Week, October 23rd through 31st. And whereas businesses, governments, parents, law enforcement, media, medical institutions, religious institutions, schools, senior citizens, service organizations, and youth will demonstrate their commitment to healthy, drug-free lifestyles by wearing and displaying red ribbons during this week-long campaign. And whereas the City of Renton further commits its resources to ensure the success of the Red Ribbon Campaign. Now therefore I, Dennis Law, Mayor of the City of Renton, do hereby proclaim October 23rd through 31st, 2017 to be Red Ribbon Week in the City of Renton. And I encourage all citizens to join me in participating in drug prevention education activities, making a visible statement that we are strongly committed to a drug-free city. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Renton to be affixed this 23rd day of October 2017, and it is signed by Mayor Dennis Law.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Prince.
I move the proclamation be adopted as read.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Prince, seconded by Mr. Corman. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next up, we are going to have a public hearing. Yes, oh, that's right, excuse me. To accept the proclamation, we have Stephanie Hayes from the Police Department. Want a picture? Okay. Okay, now we're going to open up a public hearing. The first will be on the mid-biennial budget.
Good evening, Council. Thank you. We're here tonight to fulfill our requirements established by the RCW to hold a public hearing to review our biennial budget adjustment and a review and adjustment of our revenue sources in the general fund. At the end of the mid-biennial budget process, we'll be coming to Council and asking them to adopt two ordinances to set our property tax for 2018, as well as adopt an ordinance for the budget amendments for 2017-18, and then to adopt a resolution for our fee schedule. So quickly, we'll go over our revenues, our major revenue sources in the general fund, and update the public on how they've been performing through 2017 and our projections for 2018. First is property tax. Normally, cities are allowed to levy an additional 1% on top of their maximum statutory limit from the prior year. As you are all aware, the city had agreed to reduce the amount of property tax that they were collecting with the formation of the Renton Regional Fire Authority. In 2017, the city reduced our property tax levy by $1 per thousand AV. And in 2018, we'll be reducing the property tax levy an additional $5.5 million. This next slide shows a calculation really the top portion is showing what is the city's estimated maximum statutory limitation with property tax. And as you can see, in 2018, our estimated statutory limit would be $37.3 million. However, with the changes that we made with the Regional Fire Authority, our 2017 levy was $24.2 million. And then taking into account the $5.5 million reduction in 2018, and then adding in new construction and our 1% limit factor, we're looking at a levy of a little bit less than $19.4 million for 2018. This is a slight increase from what our original 2018 budget had originally been, and that is really the result of additional new construction property tax revenue above and beyond what we had originally budgeted for. Sales tax revenue, in total, wholesale, general retail services, and construction sectors have all really kind of seen moderate and even increases from the prior year of 2016. Those areas of growth are offset by slight decreases in the manufacturing and auto sales sectors. We're asking for a slight increase of $150,000 for 2017 to reflect some revenue increases above and beyond what we had originally budgeted. I did want to point out that beginning in mid-2018, the city will start seeing our sales tax annexation credit go away. Once that is fully gone, that will be a $3 million decrease out of a $28 million sales tax revenue line item. Utility taxes have, over the last several years, have really been budgeted to reflect moderate to little to no growth, just because there hasn't been a whole lot of activity in utility taxes. However, we have seen in 2017 a slight upward increase over the prior years. Mostly, we assume is related to the colder than normal winter that we had at the end of 2016 and early 2017, as well as some additional cell phone tax revenue that we have been receiving. So we're asking to make some upward adjustments in 2017 for $275,000 and a $50,000 increase in 2018. Business and occupation tax. 2016 was the first year that we began collecting business and occupation tax. We collected $6.4 million, which was offset by a $1.2 million decrease in the head tax license fee that we were collecting previously. In 2017, we are actually outperforming our 2016 collections by 18%, and we're expected to exceed the budget by 10%. So for this reason, we are proposing an upward adjustment of $700,000 in 2017 and an additional $700,000 adjustment in 2018. Real estate excise tax. This revenue tends to fluctuate, and it's unpredictable. We tend to be pretty conservative with our budget our budget estimates when it comes to REITs. We consider it a one-time use, and we use it to support mostly capital operations, general governmental capital operations. In 2017, we are actually seeing a decrease from 2016, but it is above our 2017 original estimate, so we're asking to make a $750,000 upward adjustment for 2017. Excuse me. So that's a review of all of our primary revenue sources for 2017 and 18, and this is a summary of all the changes that we are proposing. For sales tax, there's the $150,000 increase, and that, as I had mentioned, was due to some of our higher performing sectors, like retail and wholesale sectors. Utility tax, the $275,000 and the $50,000 increase in the 2 years respectively. Business occupation tax, $700,000 in each year. Property tax, a $325,000 upward adjustment in 2018 to reflect the new construction. REIT, $750,000 upward adjustment. This is offset by a decrease also because since REIT can only be used for capital type projects, we will be transferring out to our general capital improvement funds. $67,000 in miscellaneous grants. This is actually a slight decrease from what the council saw at the Committee of the Whole a couple of weeks ago. And this is related to some additional shuffling and some CDBG funds that will be moved out to be used for other projects. Miscellaneous community service sponsorships. This includes Clam Light sponsorships and Ivor sponsorships, which will be offset by expenditures. And then the renew and the enhancement of the ATS contract. Our ATS contract for our red light cameras has expired, so we've extended the contract, and the additional revenue reflects a couple of new cameras being added throughout the city. This revenue is also offset by increased costs and contract costs on this next slide. So this side is a summary of our general fund adjustments on the expenditure side. The first line is the summary of position adjustments. This reflects 7 new full-time positions that we are requesting to add. I've got more information on each of those positions on the next slide. And below that is the internal service fund costs associated with hiring new employees. This includes cubicles, IT equipment, etc. Employee medical increase from 1% to 5%. This is a decrease. We had originally estimated or had budgeted for a 5% increase in employee medical healthcare costs. That 5% increase is actually going to be closer to 1%. So this $320,000 is the decrease for the impact on the general fund. Our SCORE contract adjustment is increased $270,000. This is a result of our SCORE contract costs being more than we had originally expected in 2018. The additional cost for renewed ATS contract, this is again the offset to the revenue on the prior slide. Since we're adding more hardware, our contract costs with ATS will increase, as well as the staffing costs for pro tem judges in the court will also be an increase to the general fund budget. The police retro payments for 2016-17 for $545,000. The police union settled their contract in mid-2017, and as a result of that contract settlement, there was retro payments due to the police guild. So we're aligning our budget with those contract settlements. Online B&O system enhancement, $45,000 in 17 and $80,000 in 18. This is to reflect some contract costs as well as some programming costs that we expect to incur as we make changes to our online B&O system. Grant-funded expenses, there's actually a reduction in grant-funded expenses. This is an offset to some of those new revenues, grant-funded revenues on the prior slide. The land use application scanning services for $25,000 is part of the city-wide effort to digitize our city records, and the city clerk will be tackling the large volume of land use application files that community and economic development have. 200 mil RFP services for $50,000. This is for the professional services contract and the costs associated with going out for RFP on the 200 mil building. Arts Commission funding of $50,000. We had made an adjustment in 2017 for $50,000 to enhance our Arts Commission funding budget, and this $50,000 request is just to make the 2018 budget on par with the 2017 budget. Sponsorship funded programs, this offsets the revenue listed on the prior slide. A new PD Tough book that is for $5,400, that is for a new computer installed in a police vehicle. The Parks, Trails, and Community Facilities Plan for $56,000 in 17 and $117,000 in 2018 is for the community outreach, polling task force, and potential election costs associated with the Parks, Trails, and Community Plan. And then last but not least, this is actually a new change. This is a change from what the Committee of the Whole saw a couple of weeks ago, and that's the citywide community survey. It's just pushing the cost into 2018 and reducing the budget in 2018. The survey was completed ahead of schedule than had been originally anticipated, so that payment to the vendor will actually be due in 17 rather than in 18. Summary of position changes. These are the 7 new positions that I had mentioned previously. Most of these positions have already been to council, have been reviewed and approved by the council, so I'm going to only speak to the new changes that have not been previously approved by the council. The first one is an organizational development manager. This is largely a position and body of work that the city has been working on for the last several of years, mostly on a volunteer and with a grassroots effort. And I think it's been really well received throughout the city. The city has found a lot of efficiencies and has made a lot of changes in the last couple of years. Unfortunately, it's really created a capacity issue, both on the people that have been doing this work, as well as the departments that have lost staff members' time working on the projects. So we're asking to add a new position so we can actually focus more of our staffing resources in developing this program, the written results and the organizational development program even further. Second is the city clerk's office is doing a reclass, not adding any new positions, rather just aligning the job description more closely with the work that their staff is doing. CED is asking for one new permit technician. This is for the increased permit activity, as well as a lot of the public records requests that staff has currently been asked to fulfill over the last couple of years. Human Resources and Risk Management, they are asking for a classification change from an HR analyst to an HR analyst from a risk management tech, and then adding a new risk analyst position. And this is really just asking for another position back and to realign job duties once again. In 2009, they had lost a safety officer when the city had made a lot of staffing cuts. And in the meantime, there's been a lot of shifting of jobs, and this is to get those jobs realigned and get that staffing capacity back in HR. It was risk management.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Person.
on the new requests, I don't believe we've gotten a written description of what the job duties and the need. And I know they're in existence, so I was wondering if maybe we could get those.
Okay.
We have compiled those.
I think
Our plan.
they'd asked for them last week, yeah.
Our plan was to compile them and with the November 6th Committee of the Whole packet with all of the information. Would you like to see those sooner?
Yes.
Okay. we'll
Yes,
get
we
them-
would.
Yeah, and we'll get them to you sooner. But we did hear that request and we have compiled that information, so we'll get that
Great.
to council.
Thank you.
And then all of the other positions are previously approved positions. This slide is a summary of the general fund ending fund balance after the mid-biennial budget proposals. The adjustments, the adjustments in the light blue line are hard to see from here. That's a summary of the adjustments that we're making both to the revenue and the expenditure in this mid-buy adjustment. The impact on the ending fund balance is actually a $1.3 million increase at the end of 2018 over our original budget, our original adopted budget. And I'm going to turn this over to Jan to talk about our 6-year financial plan a little bit more and the impact of our fund balance.
What you see on this slide is a graphic picture and the table showing the impact on the 5-year forecast and, 6-year forecast. And what we're doing here is we're just giving you an idea of the long-range forecast as the mid-biennium budget adjustments were proposed. As I mentioned at the Committee of the Whole, the ending fund balance at the end of the time period is $5 million. This is a little bit better than what you saw going in with the adoption of the 17-18 budget, but again, as Jamie mentioned, in 2018, we start to see that loss of the $3 million in annexation sales tax, and that is what really causes the fund balance to drop. It does have a significant impact. And as I mentioned, when we adopted the 17-18 budget, we will be returning with the 19-20 budget to talk about fiscal sustainability and what we plan to do about that. So at the last committee of the whole meeting, when we talked about the take-home vehicles, council asked to see the impact of maybe expediting that. We had proposed perhaps we would look at a 3-year implementation plan, and council had asked us to look for something that expedited that. So what you see on this next slide is a 3-year and a 2-year implementation. And basically, we have used whatever one-time sources we could identify to help offset the original purchase of the vehicles. So we've used some things like seizure funds where it's applicable for an enforcement activity. We've reallocated some revenue so that excess could be dedicated to eligible projects and pulled back the general fund portion. We've used some small tools and equipment type money, so we're trying to find those one-time sources to help us implement this program. The bottom line, however, is that it does have an impact on fund balance, and again, we'll just have to make that decision as we do the 1920 budget as to how we're going to roll up our sleeves and solve this problem. So what we will do when we bring back the budget for deliberation on November 6th for you is we will give you 3 different versions so you can deliberate and decide which direction you want to go with this.
Great, thank you.
So moving away from the general fund, going over some of the highlights with the mid-budget adjustment, we are also going to be creating a new Family First Fund. We will be moving $4 million from the Capital Facilities Fund, and we'll be moving that into the new Family First Fund to be used for the creation of that center. We don't have any plans right now to spend any of that money, and we would not be spending any of that money until we have council direction and approval. Also in the Municipal Capital Facilities Fund, we've made some changes to purchase the Fawcett South property acquisition, the sign shop remodel, senior center remodel, and all of those projects will be either funded by grants, parks impacts fees, and then some money from the library fund, as well as just reallocation of money from some projects to another. We'll also be aligning the 2017 Capital Projects Fund to include the Lake Washington Loop Trail project, which is funded by a state grant. This is very similar to the summary that I showed you a couple slides ago. This actually takes into account all of the budget adjustments in all of our funds citywide. In the end, our ending fund balance is ending at $105.8 million at the end of 2018. This is $5 million over the original budget, and $4 million of this is actually related to that Family First money, since we are not putting any appropriation or showing that we're budgeting the spending of any of that money yet. That $4 million is going into the fund balance at this time.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Ms. Brent.
once again, you said that that money is not going to be touched until council approval.
Correct.
Thank you.
So that concludes our review of the revenues and the mid-biennial budget proposals. October 9th, we had our first committee of the whole review. Tonight is October 23rd. We're doing our public hearing, which will be followed with another committee of the whole meeting on November 6th, where, as Jan had mentioned, we'll be bringing 3 proposals to the committee of the whole to refer to council. And that same night, we will have the first reading of the ordinances. And then on November 13th, we will have the final reading and adoption of our ordinances and resolution. Are there any questions?
Any questions by council? Okay, we have nobody signed up. Do we have any correspondence?
No, we do not.
Okay.
Move the public hearing be closed.
Second.
Been moved by Mr. Person, seconded by Mr. Prince, that the meeting be closed. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Great. Okay, on to our next public hearing will be the Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan.
Hello again. My name is Mindy Matson. I'm an emergency management coordinator here for the City of Renton, and it's my opportunity today to brief you on the update to our comprehensive emergency management plan, which has been a work in progress for since about September of last year. And I want to, on behalf of emergency management, thank all of the city staff and our external partners who worked on this. It was no small lift for sure. Many people had their hands on this, so there's lots of credit to go around for all the hard work that was done. Okay, so I wanted to start with a little history, beginning with the mandates, the reason why. Why do we have a comprehensive emergency management plan? It is actually a Washington Administrative Code, number 118, which governs emergency management in the state of Washington, and it requires that we have a comprehensive emergency management plan. I want to call to your attention a typo that is in this slide. It says that it's reviewed every 4 years. It used to be a 4-year review cycle, and it is now switched to a 5-year review cycle. So the last time we did this was in 2012, so we are still compliant within that 5-year cycle through 2017. We receive money through the Emergency Management Performance Grant, and it's an important source of revenue for emergency management. It allows us to do a lot of things that we would really struggle to do otherwise, and it is a requirement that we have a CEMP in good standing in order to continue to be able to access that funding. Also, if we were looking to do pre-disaster mitigation grants, we would need to have a comprehensive emergency management plan. And also, if we have a disaster, or when we have a disaster, I should say, and we get a presidential declaration of disaster, we're eligible for reimbursement funds from FEMA, but they will be checking just to make sure that we have a current CEMP that's in good standing. Sometimes there's confusion around the CEMP because it's not necessarily an operational plan like we think of. We don't have in this plan, you know, the number of cots that we need to open a shelter or where we might set up a community point of distribution. Those kind of tactical things are in other plans. This is more of an umbrella plan that sorts out who is responsible for each of the tasks, the items that are included within the plan, and I'll give you some more information about what's in it. So a little bit of background. We started, as I said, in September of 2016. The main driving group behind this was the Emergency Management Group. It's a group that meets monthly usually, and that it's comprised of representatives from all the different city departments. So they were all intimately involved with pushing this plan forward. We have lots of great subject matter expertise that is in those meetings on a monthly basis, but because the plan is so comprehensive and covers so many different topics, we did reach out to lots of other city staff as subject matter experts to contribute to the plan. So as I mentioned, there are a lot of people who've had eyes on this and input. In addition to our internal partners, we have lots of named agencies that are external partners. So we know when disasters happen, we can't do it all by ourselves, and we'll be looking to other agencies and other organizations to partner with us at that time in order to carry our plan out. An example of that would be when we open up a shelter, we ask the Red Cross for assistance with that, so they would be a named supporting agency in our plan. We had a public meeting in March of this year. It was fairly well attended. We were excited. It's kind of hard to get a buzz created around emergency management plans. Most people want to talk about it a lot after we have bad things happen, but not so interested before. So we had just over 50 people, which we were pleased with. We had subject matter experts for each of the areas covered in the plan that stood up with whiteboards and answered questions for the public and took input from the public. We also incorporated a workstation in the middle of the room where people could sit down with paper copies of the existing plan and go through it page by page, and then we invited them to write on note cards feedback that they had. And again, we got quite a few people that did take the time to sit down and do that. This year, for the first time, we used an online survey to garner more information from the public. And I think we would call it a success. Once again, we don't get hundreds and hundreds of people replying, but we did have quite a few people that sat down and took the time to give us some thoughtful feedback about what they thought about the plan and ways that we could make it better. It's been briefed out to administrators, so they've had eyes on it, and then it was briefed to the committee of the whole today, and it's brought before council and the public meeting forum tonight. And then the next step is for it to go to the state for their blessing. They take a look at it and say, yeah, it looks great, or it looks okay, but we've got some issues that we'd like you to fix. And they may ask us to make fixes before it's fully blessed this time around, or they may give us suggestions for next time we go through this revision cycle of things that we can incorporate. And they did that last time, and the suggestions they made during the 2012 cycle, we incorporated into the 2017 version of the plan. This is a very wordy slide that I apologize for, but I just wanted to make sure that people had a chance to see how comprehensive the plan actually is, that it really is a compilation of everything we can come up with that we might be responsible for doing after a disaster. And then the plan, as I mentioned, designates who's going to be responsible, who's going to be the primary agency or the supporting agency or department for each of these items. The basic plan is kind of the most operational probably of all of them. And the kind of things that are contained in the basic plan are the scope of the plan, what it covers and doesn't cover, what types of hazards we think we're most vulnerable here in the Renton area. It talks about our emergency operations center, which we would activate in the event that we needed to. It activates at different levels, so it talks about those, who has the authority to open up the emergency operations center. It talks about the emergency proclamation process, which we would ask the mayor to proclaim if we had a good size emergency or disaster. It also speaks to the role of elected officials, the continuity of government in case our elected officials are also impacted by the disaster. And it contains an internal communication plan, which means how we're going to communicate among city staff and other people responding. It's not an external communication plan, it's just for people who are involved with the response. And you can see there's another error on one of my slides here. There are actually 15, so there's a 15th ESF in its external affairs, and I think it just got covered up by the text box below with the annexes. So these are all the things that are covered in the ESFs and the annexes. So here are a summary of kind of the more meaty changes that we made to the plan this time. The Regional Fire Authority separating from the city fundamentally changed a lot in the plan, because prior to the RFA forming independently, emergency management was a function of the fire department. So as a result, the Renton Fire Authority or the Renton Fire Department was named many, many places in our plan as either a primary agency or a supporting agency. So we really had to take some time to tease out, are they listed for their fire department functions, or are they listed for emergency management functions, which stayed with the city and are now part of the executive department. So we changed a lot of places where it said RFA to executive. And again, thanks to the folks at the RFA, they worked very hard to make it meaningful, to make sure that we were making the right call about who was responsible for each area of the plan, and a lot of work went in from the fine folks there as well. We refined supporting agencies. I think in previous versions of this plan, we brainstormed and came up with any agency that we thought we might tap or we might involve in a response, and it was a very long list of partnering supporting agencies, and probably not a very realistic one. So we really went through these and said, okay, if we do have to stand up this plan, who are we actually going to have at the table with us? Who is actually our partner in this that's going to help response? And so we streamlined those to a certain extent and made sure they were more reflective of the partners we would actually have in a disaster. Based on the feedback from our 2012 planning cycle, we added a terms, definitions, and acronyms section, which lives in the basic plan, but it covers all of the ESFs. I think it's helpful, especially for people who don't live in the emergency management world. If you're picking up a plan and it's during, times of disaster when things are pretty stressful, to not be so lost in the lingo and the acronyms and things. So I think this was definitely a good addition. We have a new regional hazard mitigation plan. Prior to its development, each city had their own hazard mitigation plan, and it's now switched to where the county does an overarching hazard mitigation plan, and each city has an annex underneath that. So we changed the CEMP to reflect that we have this new way of doing regional hazard mitigation. We added language to address people with limited English proficiency. That's what the LEP stands for in there. And also to increase more language in the plan about how to address the needs for people with functional and access needs. As you know, there's a new law that requires that we do some additional things in emergency notification and warning for people who have limited English proficiency. And it is required that in the future that's incorporated into all comprehensive emergency management plans. But since the law is so new, we're really kind of, I don't want to say guessing because there was a lot of thought and discussion that went into it, but we really don't know what the approved language should look like. In other words, we can't go to someone else's plan and say, hey, how are you addressing this new law? Because we're right on the cutting edge of it. So we anticipate that it's probably best practices will develop because of the new law, and as we do, and the state is able to give us examples then of what good language is, we will incorporate those for future iterations of this plan. We went through and changed citizen to resident. We completely overhauled ESF 11, and I think it's important to say when I showed you that list of all of the different ESFs, those are not just decided on by us. Those are decided on at the federal level. So our comprehensive emergency management plan is going to have the same basic plan and ESF and annex components as a state plan or a federal plan or a county plan. So those are not determined by us. But ESF 11 used to be food and water, and it's now agriculture and natural resources. So it's a big departure, and community services took that on, and basically I had nothing to hand them about what the new annex was, or ESF was supposed to look like, and they really did a fantastic job of researching that and taking a swipe at that for the first time. And then we added a cyber incident annex, which, as I'm sure you're aware, we're hearing so much more now about cyber crime and cyber warfare, and certainly disasters in the cyber realm are a lot more on our radar than they were. So we have our first cyber incident annex that was added to the plan. So with that, I will open it up for questions and comments.
Great presentation. Better the second time around. Any questions from council? Okay, this is a public hearing, and we have nobody signed up to speak on this. Do we have any?
No, we do not.
Okay, what's the wish of the council?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Prince.
I move we close the public meeting.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Prince, seconded by Mr. Corman, that this meeting be closed. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our third and final public hearing for the night is the revised 2018 through 2023 Transportation Improvement Program, TIP.
Good evening, council members. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present this Transportation Improvement Program revision. So I'm Vicki Grover. I'm the Public Works Transportation Planning and Programming Manager. And I would like to do a presentation on the Valley Medical Project. This new project at Valley Medical consists of a 150,000 square foot medical office building and a new 1,250 stall parking structure. Construction on the parking structure has already begun, and the project is scheduled for completion 2019. Currently, the intersection of South 177th Street and what's called North Campus Road, which comes out of Valley Medical, does not line up as a true intersection. So the project is proposing to align those into a proper intersection and signalize it with protected left turns. Currently, as the intersection is today, it does not meet peak hour warrant analysis, but by 2019, when the project is complete, and with the projected growth in the area, the intersection will meet signal warrant analysis. They're also proposing to, along Talbot Road, do some bus shelter improvements, ADA upgrades at a couple of different locations, add protection for pedestrian crossing, include utility striping, signage, and some landscaping improvements. The benefits of providing the signal and the realignment of this intersection will increase the level of service improve the level of service, which means reduction in delay time for drivers. It will also provide gaps in the traffic for vehicles to turn coming out of Valley Medical or along Talbot Road. The signalization and realignment of the intersection will also reduce the potential for accidents. The signal will be integrated into the city's Scoot system and will become part of a synchronized signal system in this corridor. Signalization can also help to cut through traffic along 177th, which turns into 98th, which is a small neighborhood in there and has some speed bumps in there, and people come in off of Carr Road, and sometimes we'll use that as a cutoff. The signal could help deter that traffic, because they're going to have to wait unless you're going to turn right. Staff recommends approval of the Transportation Improvement Program revision for the Valley Medical Project. We'll present the resolution for reading and adoption. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Okay, so this is a public hearing, and we have nobody signed up to speak. Do we have any correspondence?
No, we do not.
Okay, what's the wish of the council?
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
It's been moved by Ms. Perez, seconded by Mr. Corman. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we are finished with public hearings for the night. On to administrative report.
Thank you, Council President. The Public Works Department would like to remind residents of, to help flooding. We saw significant rain recently, so please make sure that you monitor your catch basins and clear them of leaves and other debris. Street sweepers are there, but it is to your advantage to help with your residential areas. Also, it's nearing the end of October, and snow is not that far away, so please plan for snow events. The city is very well equipped and will have snow plows, but those will first focus on the major arterials. We do have our snow map routes on our website. The city is also in the process of updating its bicycle and trails master plan, and we are very eager to get public input. Next opportunity is on Thursday, November 28th from 5 to 8 p.m. We have an open house at the Renton Senior Center. You can also direct questions that if you may have to Parks Planning and Natural Resources Director Leslie Betlak and our Transportation Planning Manager Vicki Grover. And we have the third and final free eco-film series that's hosted by the Solid Waste Utility at Carco Theater. The next screening is on Thursday, November 16th at 6 p.m. At 7:30 p.m., we have Chef Thierry Ratoru, and I don't know if I pronounced his name right, I apologize, of Seattle's Lule and Luke restaurants, who will share his tips and tricks in reducing food waste. And then we have a series of information on traffic impacts, detours, road closures. Please visit rentonwa.gov/traffic impacts. These are kept up to date, and you'll also have street signs as you have the closures. That's all, Mr. Mayor, Council President.
Thank you, Preeti. Okay, next up, we have audience comments. We have one person signed up. When I state your name, please come up to the podium. State your city of residence, and you have 5 minutes. Diane Dobson.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Diane Dobson from Renton. I want to take a moment and recognize a few groups and bring a few things to your attention. First, I want to thank the neighbors of North Renton. Just before the Renton multicultural event, I recognized we could be having hundreds to thousands of people coming into our downtown core to visit our piazza and pavilion. And in an effort of making our city the most presentable place possible, I reached out to the private property owner who owned the old Denny's building on the corner of 2nd and Rainier. This happens to be a church in California who my understanding hasn't been too cooperative with city efforts in cleaning or maintaining their property. I tracked down the archdiocese of the church, explained to them the festival happening in just a few short days, and he gave me the verbal and then written permission to access his property for the sake of the cleanup. So together with a few neighbors from North Renton, we cleaned up over 1,200 gallons of garbage, debris, trash, human waste, and used needles from this location. Fire Station 11 took the needles to dispose of for us, and we heavy-duty bagged and disposed of the rest per the Solid Waste Division's suggestions at our own expense. I bring this to the city's attention now because despite repeated calls to the Renton Police Department and a business trespass authorization that has been in place since December of 2014, the property continues to be used as a makeshift shelter. People are breaking into the building, and the premises continue to be used as an unsafe injection site with hundreds of needles left around for the public's wrist. Second, I want to thank the parents and teachers and youth support groups at Dimmitt Middle School. There's been a house located near Dimmitt that has been tagged as no occupancy for an extended period of time. After decades of crime, drugs, mail theft, and nuisance to the surrounding neighborhood, and despite being tagged as no occupancy, the tenants continued to live in the house and continued their reign of terror in the neighborhood. Despite the neighbors coming to the city and asking for help and being almost dismissed by the officials and the Renton Police Department with the statement the city is trying to build a case against them, including a major mail theft ring, it wasn't until the parents, teachers, and support staff connected with Dimmitt became involved after being informed their students were conveniently accessing this house on the way home from school that the no occupancy was actually enforced, and the neighbors are starting to feel a difference. They still live in fear with bars on their doors and windows and cameras on every corner of their house, but they have less people knocking on their doors in the middle of the night, less stolen vehicles crashing through their driveway, less naked people barging into their homes in the middle of the morning, and fewer people using their property and side yards as bathrooms and sleeping quarters. In connection with the aforementioned house, there are a few homeless encampments located on the hillside above the St. Vincent de Paul store. Council should be aware of this, as a wife of a former mayor reached out to the Public Safety Committee last year about the same. The camp continues in existence, as does the crime, and it's my understanding the city is having challenges with the enforcement of cleanup because of the ambiguous property lines and boundaries. There's a transient camp located above the Fred Meyer on Kroger properties nonetheless. There are people sleeping around the property at the old Renton Chamber of Commerce building. There's a major camp falling in the no man's land of King County boundaries at the end of 84th that has piles of bicycles and lawnmowers all around it. Hayes, Hardy, Taylor, and Lake Streets are all locations that have transient camps as well. I recognize that homelessness is a problem, an epidemic, if you will, and I'm not heartless to the plight of those on the street. But if the city is going to allow those people to sleep on our streets under the guise of they have nowhere else to be, then the city should be responsible to provide some sort of structure, consequence for actions, or better yet, a shelter. But to allow these people to sleep on our streets with no attempt to enforce the laws, clean up the messes they make, or hold anyone accountable is not fair to the surrounding neighborhoods and those tax-paying, law-abiding citizens who are suffering as a result. I've been coming to the city for years now about the challenges faced by the homeless in our community. For years, I've been almost dismissed. Mayor Law took exception to the comments we made about the homeless and the crime on the trail and told the city council members that I was crazy and didn't know what I was talking about. Yet now the residents are now being told that the lower trail is under threat of being removed, not just for the naturalization, because of that same crime that I was dismissed about for the past few years. So what is it? Is there a challenge or is there not? Your response is inconsistent. In fact, the only thing that continues to be consistent is the apathetic approach and waiting for something positive to happen. Make it happen. What happened to the task force on homelessness in the city of Renton? It's gone. Where's the proactive approach to the people on our streets? It's left up to the responsibility of others. You have willing and able citizens and volunteers. Use them. You have a deputy chief with the RFA who could be an invaluable resource. Listen to him. Be proactive with your approach instead of reactive. What is being done to find solution now that you have finally acknowledged that we do have a problem? Waiting for something to happen and dismissing these problems as a bigger than Renton problem and relying upon the county, the state, and the federal government to find solutions is putting the fate of our city and our community in the hands of others. Others who do not live, do not work, and do not know Renton the way that we do, and whose cookie-cutter approach to the cure might not be the best approach for Renton. Look how well that's working for us with the opioid epidemic as the city of Renton suffers from the third highest overdose rate in King County. I now come to you as our city leadership, and I challenge you to do something, to be proactive and not rely on others to fix the problems that we have.
Thank you. Okay, next up, we have consent agenda. We have 10 items for consideration. Is there any that you'd like to be pulled?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to remove item H.
Okay, we have item H to be removed.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Prince.
I'd like for us to approve the consent agenda minus item H.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Prince, seconded by Mr. Corman, that we approve the consent agenda minus item H. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, Mr.
yes, Mr.
Prince. No,
Person.
Mr. Person, sorry.
I asked this to be removed because this is to hire a engineer, transportation engineer at step E, and as we've been experiencing lately, getting good qualified employees is getting to be more difficult. This person lives in our neighborhood, wants to work in our neighborhood, and is going to take a pay cut to come here, even by moving her to the step E. So with that, I move that the council approve item H.
Second.
Been moved by Mr. Person, seconded by Mr. Prince, that we approve item H. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we are on to unfinished business.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
For clarity, on that last motion, so when we say approve item H, we're not referring it to Finance Committee, we're
Oh,
just
no.
outright
Yeah.
approving
We're
it.
outright approving.
Right, we're approving, we're not
Yeah.
sending it to the
Yeah,
finance. That's what,
that's how I understood the
I
motion, so I just wanted to
misspoke, I should have been
clarify
more clear.
that. Okay, nope, it's good.
Is that good? Okay, on to unfinished business, Ms. Perez.
Okay. The Transportation and Aviation Committee has two reports to present. Committee reports to present.
One.
Yeah, it's last. Sorry.
Okay, the Transportation Aviation Committee report is regarding the revision to the 2018-2023 six-year Transportation Improvement Program. The Transportation Aviation Committee recommends concurrence in the staff recommendation to approve the revision to the 2018-2023 six-year Transportation Improvement Program to include signalization and related roadway improvements at Talbot Road South and South 177th Street. The committee further recommends that the resolution regarding this matter be presented for reading and adoption, and this is signed by the committee chair and members.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Ms. Perez.
I move that council concur with the recommended action of the Transportation Aviation Committee report.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mrs. Perez, seconded by Mr. Person, that the council concur with the Transportation Committee report. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Mr. McGurven.
No unfinished business, Mr. Mayor.
Let's see, Mr. Persons.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have two finance committee reports.
Okay, the first Finance Committee report is regarding the Washington State Department of Transportation 2017 through 2019 Transportation Demand Management Implementation Agreement. The Finance Committee recommends concurrence in the staff recommendation to authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute a 2-year agreement with the Washington State Department of Transportation for performance of the Transportation Demand Management Implementation Agreement with a cost reimbursement to the city of $81,272. This grant extends over the city's 2017 to 2018 biennium budget and the 2019 budget. The grant is currently reflected in the 2017-2018 biennium budget and will be included as part of the 2019 to 2020 biennium budget. This is signed by the committee chair and vice chair.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Person.
once again, we're accepting money, which is my favorite. I move the council concur in the recommendation of the finance committee.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Person, seconded by Mr. Prince, that the council concur with the Finance Committee report. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, the second Finance Committee report is regarding approval of claims and payroll vouchers. The Finance Committee approves for payment on October 23rd, 2017, claims vouchers 5611 through 5621, 101517, 111517, 360620 through 360637, 360666 through 361021, and 4 wire transfers and 1 payroll run with benefit withholding payments totaling $5,909,524.01, and payroll vouchers including 637 direct deposits and 36 payroll vouchers totaling $1,308,036.19, and Kidder Matthews vouchers 1317 through 1318, 5487 through 5504, totaling $45,586.61. And this is signed by the committee chair and vice chair.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Person.
I move the council concur in the recommendation of the Finance Committee.
Second.
Okay, it's been approved, it's been moved by Mr. Person, second by Mr. Prince, that the council concur with the Finance Committee report. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Mr. Prince.
The committee of the whole has a committee report.
Okay, the Committee of the Whole Committee report is regarding the City of Renton Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan. The Committee of the Whole recommends concurrence in the staff recommendation to adopt the revised Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan. The committee further recommends the resolution regarding this matter be presented for adoption, and this is signed by the Council President.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Prince.
I move that the council concur in the recommendation of the committee of the whole committee report.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Prince, seconded by Mr. McGurven, that the council concur with the Committee of the Whole Committee report. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we're on to legislation.
No unfinished business.
Randy,
No
Mr.
unfinished
Corman, do you
business.
have any unfinished
I
business?
wouldn't have said anything when Mr. Prince is over here saying, thank you, but no unfinished business.
Yeah, that's perfect, thank you.
Okay, we will move on to resolutions. Our first resolution is a resolution of the City of Renton, Washington, adopting the City of Renton Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Prince.
I move we adopt the resolution as read.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Prince, seconded by Mr. McGurven, that the resolution be adopted as read. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, resolution passes.
Okay, the second resolution is a resolution of the City of Renton, Washington, revising Renton's 6-year transportation improvement program for 2018 through 2023.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Perez.
I move the resolution be adopted as read.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mrs. Perez, seconded by Mr. Person, that the council adopt the resolution as read. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Legislation passes.
Okay, and our final ordinance, or our final piece of legislation, is an ordinance for second and final reading and adoption. An ordinance of the City of Renton, Washington, amending subsections of the Renton Municipal Code to move all businesses to a calendar year reporting period for business license purposes with a January 31st due date, clarifying potentially ambiguous language to ensure consistent application of existing business and operations tax and business license regulations, and providing for severability and establishing an effective date.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Person.
I move the ordinance be adopted as read.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Person, seconded by Mr. Prince, and this is the final reading, and it requires a roll call.
Mr. Pavoni?
Aye.
Ms. Perez?
Aye.
Mr. McGurven?
Aye.
Mr. Person?
Aye.
Mr. Prince?
Aye.
Mr. Corman?
Aye.
Roll call, Mr. Mayor. All ayes.
Thank you. Okay, on to new business. Ms. Perez.
Thank you. On Monday, November 6th at 4:30, the Transportation Committee will meet at the Council Conference Room. There are 2 items in the agenda: Rainier Avenue South Additional Design Supplemental Agreement and Emerging Issues in Transportation. That will be it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McGurven.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just need to announce that the Utilities Committee has a meeting scheduled for Thursday, October 26th at 3:30 p.m. in the Council Conference Room. There are 4 items on the agenda: Flood Reduction Grant Funds Award, Madison Creek; partial release of easement from Strada de Valle, LLC; XO Communications Services Franchise Agreement; and Emerging Issues in Utilities. And I need to announce for Councilmember Witchy that the Community Services Committee scheduled for November 6th has been canceled. That is all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Person.
No new business.
Mr. Prince.
Yes, announcing a couple of things. This Thursday, October 26th, at 4:30 PM in the council conference room, the Planning and Development Committee will be meeting. We have 3 items on the agenda: Renton Fire Authority impact fees, adoption of 2017 school district capital facility plans, and emerging issues in CED. Also, this Monday, October 30th, there'll be no meeting. It's the 5th Monday. So on Monday, November 6th, Committee of the Whole meeting at 5 PM in the council chambers. We have 2 items on the agenda: mid-biennial budget deliberation and head tax / B&O tax discussion. And that is all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Corman.
No new business, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. What is the wish of the council?
Move we adjourn.
Second?
It's been moved by Mr. Person, seconded by Mr. Prince, that we adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.